Okay, midlife and siblings. This is an interesting dynamic because as we are grown-ups now and we look around the room and realize, wait, we're the adults in the room now, midlife presents unique dynamics in the sibling relationship. And we have never talked about this on the podcast before. And so as we thought about relationships we wanted to cover in February, because we talk about things we love and people we love, we wanted to bring in the topic of siblings. And so we have two very special guests with us today. Kendra Grabowski and Mitchell Thomas are Krista's real life siblings. And Krista is the middle child. And in a minute, she's going to introduce them. But I just want to take a moment to recognize that family dynamics are complicated and that not every family is the same. And these three are speaking about their own experiences, both growing up and now as adults. And so as you're listening, you might be a person like me who didn't grow up with other people. I essentially grew up as an only child, and sometimes I can look at other families and wish, especially this stage of life when we're taking on responsibilities for parents, wish that I had some companions in that journey. Or like me, maybe you do have some half siblings, because even though I did grow up alone, I have siblings out in the world that I don't really have a relationship with. We literally speak different languages. They live on the other side of the world from me. And culturally and age-wise and stage of life, but mostly just the lack of shared life. It can feel lonely when I think about that. So we are going to be talking about sibling relationships in the context of these three and what they've experienced, but we also recognize that this is not everyone's experience. And we want to be giving some practical tips, some practical lenses to look through, that no matter where you are in your relationship with your siblings, that you can find a starting place to move towards health, to move towards intimacy, that no matter what's happened in the past, you can take wisdom from what's happened and perhaps make something different in your family. So we just wanted to give that recognition here at the beginning. This is going to be a two-part series because we have a lot to say. And so today we're really going to be talking about the benefit of sibling relationships, especially in midlife. And next week, we are going to be covering maybe some more of the conflict and how the ripple effect impacts the rest of the extended family. Hang on, hold tight. We're going to have a great time. This is a fun bunch. So we are going to laugh. We are going to be talking about some really fun memories and insights that they have. We're maybe going to get the inside scoop on Krista from her brother and sister. That's going to be fun. And we are realistic that we all come from different vantage points. So I'm going to hand it over to Krista, and she is going to introduce her siblings before we get into this conversation.
Well, it is my absolute joy to introduce my siblings today. That is one thing. You do not get to pick the family that you're born into. There is nothing that I did to deserve my brother and sister. Nothing. And yet, they're two of my favorite people in the whole world. And I'm going to get teary just talking about them. They are incredible human beings. And what an honor, truly, what an honor it is that I get to be their sister. And I didn't deserve that. You know, there's some things that we have that are really good in life that we feel guilty about. And that has been the case for me. I have often struggled with guilt around, why did I get this family? And then one day I had an epiphany. And it was some time I was having in prayer. And I really sensed God impressing on me, this is a gift. And for you to feel guilty about the gift you've been given is not right. This is a gift, so receive it and then do something with it. Encourage other people, pour into them, and then go out and shine light in the world and give other people hope that they too can have life-giving sibling relationships or family relationships. And that was such an epiphany for me. And that happened years ago. And I really have taken that on. And that's a part of our mission today in this episode, is that we would give hope around the sibling relationship. And there is hope, because in Christ, there is always hope. Even if it feels like there is no hope in Christ, there is always hope. John 1:5, light overcomes darkness. The darkness has not overcome it. So I hope people hear that and just feel encouraged in their own spirits. But let me introduce my siblings, because I still haven't introduced them. So meet Kendra Grabowski. Kendra is one of the most fun people that ever walks into a room. When she walks in, the room shifts and changes, and it just got way more fun because she's in it. She is one of the most lively people you will ever meet, and she is wicked smart. Nothing gets by Kendra. We call her the FBI. In fact, I posted an Instagram story about her that is about, like, if one of our kids goes on a date, she finds who they went out with in 0.5 seconds flat, like any of the kids in our family.
It's a gift.
So, she's just very with it. She also is an ESL teacher, and she has a heart for teaching refugees. And so currently she is running a class for elderly refugees. And I just find her combination to be so compelling, because she is the fun and the zany and the crazy. And then she's also the deep, and she's the big heart that wants to help others and protect others and give them a voice in the world and empower them in the world. And so that is Kendra. She has 3 children and her husband, Eric, and we're going to talk more about them and Eric. And then Mitchell Thomas. We call him the Renaissance man, because he not only was a Division I athlete, soccer player at the University of Washington, but he also sings and acts and cooks and he literally does all the things. He is the Renaissance man. And Mitch is also one of the wittiest people I've ever known, because he has really smart, kind of dry humor, and it's the best. And it blesses our family so much. He is a theater professor at Westmont College in Santa Barbara, California. And he has 3 daughters. And so we had the sons. Mitch, being the only boy in our family, had all the girls. And he's just an incredible human being and has really impacted his students over the years. He still acts. He still travels the world acting, which I think is incredible. He's a great model of how to keep growing in your craft and in your area as you are in midlife. And these 2 are 2 of my anchors in the world.
And I think people will be curious. Krista is the middle. Kendra is the oldest. And that leaves Mitchell as the youngest.
Alex, I'm the oldest.
Because I think people will want to know that birth order as you talk. But here we are, we're all grown up and looking at each other as different people than we were maybe when we were little, maybe when we were teenagers, the last 20, 30 years. So let's start with the basics. Kendra, what makes sibling relationships unique? Why should we be having this conversation in the first place?
Well, when I was thinking about this, I had heard a quote a long time ago about siblings. And so I went and found it, actually. And it says, our parents leave us too early. Our spouses and children come along too late. Our siblings are the only ones who are with us for the entire ride. And that was by Jeffrey Kluger, who gave a TED Talk on the sibling bond. And I just love that, to think about that these 2 are really the only people that will have seen me through my entire life. They know my story. They know what has happened to me. I don't have to explain everything. And it is really over the years and through the decades, I mean, they have really formed me and defined a lot of who I am. And so I just think that makes the sibling bond just really unique because they see you through all of the stages. And this last week, it was my parents' 60th anniversary. And so we got to go to some old places where where they got married and our first house. And just when the three of us showed up on Drumheller, we just immediately started with all the memories that we had in the house that we lived in for the first 11 years of our lives. And it's just really special. Like no one else has those memories like we do. So
no one else
very
saw
unique
Mitch crack his head
relationship.
open on the fireplace 5 times because he couldn't see and we didn't know it.
Oh. So there's the history there. Krista, anything you want to add to why sibling relationships are important?
I feel like my siblings bring out a part of me that is reserved just for each of them. So like when I'm with my sister, she brings out a side to me that is just with her, or with Mitch, it's just with Mitch. Mitch and I remember talking him into when we were in high school, there was a 0-hour class and it was a 7:00 choir, jazz choir. And Mitch was such a good singer, but he was mainly an athlete in high school. And I was like, please, because I loved him so much and I wanted to have a class with him. And there was no other way we were going to have a class together unless he took choir with me. And so Mitch said yes, which just shows what a good brother he is. He said yes and would get up as a teenager and drive to jazz choir with me at 7 a.m. And I just think about that is how that is shaped. Like I am with Mitch like no one else because all of those things shaped us as we were growing up and shaped our relationship. And we can probably say that about a lot of people in our lives, that there's certain friends that bring out a side to you that no one else does. But truly, like someday when we pass, and that's a sad thought, but it's an appreciative thought as well, that part of me will die if for some reason one of them goes before I do, because what we have is unique. There's something that my siblings draw out in me that is unique to just them. And so in some ways, like, isn't that interesting to think about, that in some ways inside of us, we are different parts of people. And that if they're no longer there, that part of us is gone. So isn't that a fascinating thought?
Well, I love that, Krista, because I think we hear a lot about family systems and even birth order, right? But that's more comprehensive and thinking about the whole. Whereas what you're talking about is within that, there are these individual relationships, and to recognize that and to try to nourish that, cultivate it, grow that, and appreciate it is a blessing and is a real opportunity in a different way than we think about, oh, here's my role in this particular family. It's actually the one-on-one within that's standing out there.
Yeah. And I would say probably a lot of people think of their siblings, maybe especially if they are not day-to-day involved in each other's lives, as people from their childhood, or they had a big amount of influence when you were growing up. But I would like to know, why should we care about these relationships now that we're in midlife? Mitch, why is it important to invest in sibling relationships today?
Well, as Krista was saying, Kendra was saying, these are relationships that go back to the very beginning. And so I think the shared history, the deep connections, the memories that we share together, and the ways that I think we can continue to enrich each other's lives with that unique role and position as sibling. I mean, I think in particular, one of the things that Krista and Kendra, I think, are so good at is being in relationship with my children. Krista mentioned I have 3 daughters, and they are super intentional and so loving in those relationships. And so, for me, what a gift that my daughters have aunties and uncles that they have really strong relationships with, other adults that know their story, that love them for who they are, that are interested in their lives, that they feel are just 100% there for them. And so that's a benefit I receive as a father. And that's outside of the joy and the relationship that I get just in my friendship with Krista and Kendra. So that's something that I see as, how important to have other adults that love your children as much as you do and that speak into their lives.
Yeah, I see that you all do that. Kendra, how do you intentionally have relationships with your nieces and nephews? I would love to hear some specific things that you've done.
Well, it's been fun to have Mitch's daughter in town now, going to Whitworth. And so just, having her over when she's not feeling great or just wanting some good soup or that kind of thing. And it's just such a gift to be able to be that in town. This coming weekend, Krista and I are going to fly down to Orange County to watch his oldest perform. She has a lead role in a play. And so we're going to go down there and do that with her. And that will just be a really special time to celebrate her and all of her hard work. And I think about these different opportunities that we have with our nephews and nieces. And it really does take intention and it takes sacrifice and just planning ahead of time and prioritizing that. It doesn't just happen, I think. So I think all of us has really made a commitment to each other to do that. And with Krista's kids, we moved back at almost the exact same time. So my parents went from 0 grandkids in town to 7 in town pretty much. And all of our kids are stair-stepped. And I just think the sibling relationship is really important, but also those cousin relationships are really pivotal. And we did cousin camp growing up and just did some really fun things that gave me a relationship with all of them. And just being able to clock those hours together is just really, really special. And just sending texts, sending Starbucks gift cards over text while they're in college, just special things to let them know that I'm thinking about them and that I care about them and that I'm cheering for them. I just think sometimes life can be hard, and to have those people in your life that are just cheering you on, I think makes a difference. Just last week, Krista took my daughter out to lunch for her birthday, just the two of them. And it meant so much to my daughter. And she's like, it was a good therapy session. So that's so great to have other adults that love your kids and can help them work through their 20s or, and beyond. It's just really special.
Yeah. When I think about why does it matter to have sibling relationships as adults? Does it just matter in childhood or does it matter now still? And I think one of the things that I come to is life is hard. Life is hard. And, there's a growing body of research that shows that when we have people to walk through hard things with, we can be more resilient. And that's showing in research that actually people who have that in life, they're way more resilient. Their bounce back happens so much quicker and so much more naturally. And I can say with 100% certainty that my bounce back is a lot because of these two. That yes, there's other people in my life that really matter as well. But these two are, as I said, they're anchors for me. And so it makes a huge difference. And getting to the kids, that is, and I know we'll talk about that more, but I think that's a part of building their network of resilience. And when I think about Kendra, when she mentioned the coffee cards, I don't even remember why she did it, but she literally looked up the cutest coffee shops in all the different places where my kids are, not her kids, where my kids are, and then sent them coffee gift cards to those places. And That's a small thing, but it's
she's
actually
the FBI. She's the
But she's
FBI.
the
She's
FBI.
true.
I'm good at
it's a small thing, but a really big thing, because all of a sudden their aunt is sending them like, how did you know that coffee shop? And how did you know to get me that card to there? And wow, you thought of me to do that? Well, now all of a sudden that gets like to a pretty deep place of, I'm really cared for by my aunt. And that feels really deep and significant.
When Krista was talking about that resilience piece, I mean, I think there's truly very few people in the world that when you're in a really dark place that you can like let in, to those places. And so to have siblings where you've put in that time. And I think when I dropped off my oldest at college and I came home, and I just honestly didn't know if I was going to be okay. Like I really felt that way. And I probably was in my pajamas and I just got like all of a sudden a knock at the door, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so not answering that. But then of course it was my sister with like a book on the college years and parenting in the college years or something. And then a coffee and just a hug. And I just think there's very few people that can enter into that space. And she didn't call and tell me she was coming. She just showed up. And I think that just really means a lot in those times, because like Krista said, I think as life goes on, you realize there's like hard stuff that happens. And so you need those relationships that you've invested a lot in. And I know some people have that with really good friends too, that they've almost felt more like a sibling relationship, which can be really beautiful. But I definitely feel that with these two, that they've almost like earned that, that like we can be that for each other. So.
Because you made deposits into each other for so long.
Right.
Mitch, you haven't always lived next to Krista and Kendra. They've lived near each other in the most recent phase of your adult lives. So how have the three of you been able to maintain relationships when you haven't always lived close by?
Yeah, well, that's one area where I think we've been really lucky to have family places where we can gather together. There's one in northern Idaho on the lake that we're going the summer that we've had since my grandparents built that place in the 1950s. And I just think about the benefit of time together, and time together when a lot of the concerns of our daily lives are absent or at least lessened. Like, I think when I think about the being working and family and all the things that are happening in our daily lives, it can be difficult to carve out really quality time to connect with each other, with the family. And so to be able to prioritize that time together. So we start a text thread like now, February, where we're starting to figure out like, oh, okay, how can we be together and when? And especially as the kids are getting older, that's getting more and more difficult, right? With people's lives and work schedules and all that. But we're really trying to be together. And, some of my friends, or I talk to people that when they have to go see their family, sometimes that can be a really difficult thing. Like, I'm going for a week. And I'm the opposite. And that's where Krista goes back to that when Krista said, what a blessing. I mean, to be able to say with 100% sincerity, I'm so excited to go see my parents and my sisters and my family and be on the lake together. Like, that's an incredible gift. So we have that time set aside. And so then we get to cook together, play together, go on hikes, swim, do all these things. And then those relationships can really evolve in really organic and particular kinds of ways. So I see that investment of time as crucial, especially with me being in California and being away from everyone. And yeah, but we're lucky to have that place to be able to gather, because that really enables so much of that relationship.
Krista, would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think when you don't live in the same place, you have to be that much more intentional. Though, I mean, Kendra and I would never see each other if we weren't intentional either in town, even
Right.
though we're just across town from each other. So I think you have to be intentional regardless. But I do think when you live out of town, you have to make more of an effort to know who their friends are and what their daily life looks like. Like I try and ask my brother really specific questions. Like he still plays soccer in an adult league, which I don't know how he's doing because I just look at him and it's amazing.
When I'm not injured.
Or your whole team's not injured. Yeah. Right.
But like for me to ask like really detailed questions about what is that experience for him? Because I'm not there to watch him play. So I want to know more about it. Or all the time, it's actually a running joke that we ask about these different relationships my brother has with these other guys. Like there's different things about it is why it's funny. But I want to know the people in his life. And even if I can't know them really well personally, I want to know who they are and speak that language with him. And so we ask a lot of questions and we talk about the families that they hang out with and Peter and all the things. And so, so you just have to be a little bit more intentional. And then you show up for the moments that matter. When my brother turned 40, Kendra and I did not know. I mean, we didn't know most of the people there, but we walked in and we have this little shtick that we do called the Bubblegum Sisters. And we take on this persona, we act, and everything has to do with bubblegum because back in the 80s, we were the bubblegum queens. Like we always had probably bubble yum in our mouths and blowing big bubbles. And so, so we literally come in pink with like we're chewing bubble gum. We've got bubble gum everywhere. And we talk about how bubblegum's doing all this stuff for the party. And we come in and we do this shtick and we surprise my brother and in front of all his friends. And he's like, oh my gosh, here's my sisters. Here they are in all their glory. But I mean, you show up as you are and you're there. And I remember when I turned 30, my brother and sister, they had two of the most memorable 30th things ever. So my brother did a spoof on the Blair Witch Project, like where they're running through a forest, and he sent in this video of him like being like the Blair Witch guy. It was the best. So funny. And then my sister wrote a song for me on guitar. So, right, they send these to the party because they couldn't be there in person. They send these to the party on video.
No, that's what was worse is I was there. And so then I was, right? And then everyone just
Okay. So
that's what was worse.
So Kendra sent in the video. So we were playing the video of Kendra, but she was actually in the room. And Kendra wrote me a song and it was my sister, my friend. I love you so much.
Bad songwriting.
It was something along those lines, which is so awesome. She now has a rock star daughter who's on Spotify. We'll link to her. But it was so good. And you know what? Like to everyone else, like it turned out to be this thing where everyone was laughing by her 10th stanza. The entire room was laughing. And yet, what are the two things I remember about my 30th birthday party? The Blair Witch Project video and Kendra's song. And
good.
Like, and so you show up as you are and you show up for each other and it matters. It matters a lot in the long run.
Yeah. I'm hearing there's the everyday, the Starbucks gift card. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but I'm thinking of you. And then there's the big moments, and that both are important. And when you make both a priority, even if you can't be there, you make the video and you send it in. Even if you can't get on the plane, you make the phone call and you have the conversation. So I think that is a good place for us to pause until next week and stay tuned because we will be back next week.